Just hang on there. Hello and welcome to the ArchieLuxury channel. Today we're discussing how to be a gentleman. How to be a gentleman. And this is the topic of the moment. We've got a lot of people out there fighting for ratings. So I've decided to make my own video, how to be a gentleman. And I'm going to invite the most perfect gentleman I know, the gentleman of the gentlemanest of ours, John Fuckerhorn. Hello, John. John, how are you,
G'day.
John?
G'day, Archie. How are you, mate?
I couldn't do a program on gentlemen without having you here. How to be a gentleman. John, I've decided to bring out all stops. I've brought you on the program, how to be a gentleman. If there's anyone in Australia who knows how to be a gentleman, it's John. John, I'm in a ratings war at the moment. How do I be a gentleman in my own life? I'm in a ratings war, John. I'm not rating well.
Well, just before the show here, I saw an example of a perfect gentleman with his family around him, and I thought that was beautiful. But as you said, we're not showing that on this part of the program because that's you, not ArchieLuxury. But that was an example of the perfect example of gentleman. That would have summed up this whole program quite easily in about 30 seconds. Yeah, if everyone was to see that of you, mate. But to answer your question, you know, I know how to be a gentleman. Yeah, I know how to be a gentleman. Whether I portray that in life all the time might not be the case.
So Johnny, how did you learn how to be a gentleman? Tell me, what influenced you?
In the society I was brought up as a baby boomer, in Australia we had a lot of traditional British attitudes of forced upon us through our education system. And I think we still have it in a lot of ways, you know, being a Western anglicised country. And we've relied on, you know, that example in life of how to conduct our society. And but I went to conservative schools, and you know, we were always stressed upon us, you know, you should be a gentleman in life, and you know, be respectful of your elders, and you know, open doors for you know, for ladies, and stand up on the bus, you know, for women, and they're sort of old-fashioned values which I don't think carry too much nowadays. However, Simon Crane mentioned that in his video this morning about this, and I agree wholeheartedly with Simon on that. You know, that's what counts as being a gentleman. You know, your display of it, not what comes out of your gob. You know, like, you know, it's and walking down the street with you, you know, I've seen it, you know, on many occasions. You know, how you help people, and that's what makes the gentleman in my mind. You know, when we're talking. We're talking about Paul Pluto, not ArchieLuxury, but Archie can be a gentleman too. You know, what about when Archie displays Satan DeVille? Absolute gentleman, you know.
Now, the question is, John.
As for Daryl the plumber, well, I don't know if we'd work Daryl up there as a gentleman, but as for Satan DeVille, he's there, isn't he? You know.
Now, John, do you need? The question has come in here. Okay, the question's come in. Okay, I want to ask you honestly. There has been a reference which has been made to somebody's breeding. Okay. Now we've actually, I don't want to name names because I don't want to give the other channels credibility. Okay. But, you know, to be a gentleman, maybe, John, you got to come from a blue rinse family. What do you think? Is that true? You need to come from the right stock. Is that rude to say that, John?
Not in our country.
Well, I'm getting vibes, John. I've been doing a bit of research on this, and for as nice as this other channel is, what their underlining thought is that you need to come from the right breeding.
Well, isn't it a contradictory? Isn't that a contradiction within itself? Isn't that a contradiction being, well, he's half mongrel, isn't he? He's half mongrel. The cunt we're talking about, he's got his old man's a dago and his mother's a fucking pom or something. Look, who's even fucking talk about purebred? My dog's got a better pedigree than him.
Yeah, but John, the thing you got to understand is that mongrel is also a doctor. See, it cuts both ways, apparently, John. What I've been told here. So, John, yeah, he is actually, John. So, the question I have is for you, John.
Who are we talking about?
We don't want to discuss them on the channel, John. But the question is here. Seriously, John, I really do think, John, that we've. Do you need to have breeding to be a gentleman? That's the question.
Got nothing to do with it.
Because
nothing to do with it. Like,
do you need to be in Burke's peerage to be a gentleman? That's the question for today.
Oh, please don't make me spew. No, of course not. Gentlemen, look, they're just what they call the landed gentry.
That's right.
What was it? Christopher Riddle or something wrote some magnificent text on, the landed gentry in Britain. They're all wankers. They've all ripped off the working class. Is that any great, claim to fame that you ripped off your fellow man, and got granted tracts of land from the government because you used to kick the shit out of people? Oh, that's a big rap. He's got nothing. He's, his claim to fame is he speaks about squale watches. Oh, well, that'd be enough. The average bloke could switch off at that stage, wouldn't they? Fair dinkum. Don't make. I hate his guts.
They're beating me in the ratings, John. My ratings are in the shitter.
In Pakistan, they are. They're fucking grouse over there. He's killing it in Pakistan and fucking Mumbai and all those joints. It's $3 for 10,000 bangs. Fucking. Like, you're telling me that you think you're threatened by this idiot who's got almost 20,000 subscribers. Some shit idiot said they're going to take over Archie within a month. Oh yeah, show us how much he's earning. Take over Archie. He's playing with his dick. His dick's still for pissing out of. He wouldn't know. What grown man is going to listen to that fucking kid? Really? Like he might bluff his, like some fucking school kid like Raider in New York or something. Although he wake up to him a long time, Raider. Raider thinks he's the biggest cunt that fell out of an arsehole. I'm on his side, Fucking, TGV, the bucket of dog shit it is. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, John. So, the thing is, how to be a gentleman. The thing is, do you need the right breeding? That's the question I'm asking you.
Of course not. It's a matter of manners and education. It's not a matter how you conduct yourself with your tongue. It's how you walk down the street as a man. Like you can swear like an army trooper. It doesn't stop you.
It's been suggested that you need a rather expensive automobile to be a gentleman. Is that true or not?
Most gentlemen, when I was a young man, and most gentlemen would get on the train, with their briefcase and their umbrella, and go to work. It's not a matter, even if they did have a car, that's what most gentlemen, would do. They'd get on the train. It's not a matter of having to drive to work or not, whether you've got the money. What sort of car has he got anyway? It'd be a Morris. He'd be a Morris Minor driver or something, wouldn't he? He'd drive a Lada Neva or something, wouldn't it? And reckon that's grouse.
Yes, that could be the case there, John. I've got to tell you the truth there, John. I need to have some tips on how to be a gentleman. What can you give the audience here? We've got a very young demographic. What do you do to be a gentleman? What defines a man as a gentleman? That's what I want to know. We're asking you, John. What is it?
It's got nothing to do with your clothing. It's got nothing to do with your education. It's got nothing to do.
Your breeding. Your breeding.
Got nothing to do with your breeding. It's, you know, like there's not many gentlemen, or, you know, the gentleman is a gentleman. A priest theoretically is meant to be a gentleman. A Buddhist monk, you would say, is a gentleman. Yeah, a gentleman is someone who is not aggressive. I suppose I'm trying to, you know, portray. You know, like they're soft in their manner. They might be hard in their approach on how they use their words, but they're soft in their manner. They're a gentleman. Got nothing to do with breeding, clothes, or anything like. They're all ancillary facts to fool people. You certainly don't wear jackets that are 3 sizes too big as you, and start lecturing people on being a gentleman when you can't even shave. You know, like fair income. You know, we got a cunt up here, how to be a gentleman, and he can't even shave. You know, like really. You know, like how many packs of razor blades would he go through in a week? You know, oh please. You know, like you're talking about.
Yeah, now, John, I've always said I'm working class. At me being working,
else. And you should be proud of that
working.
too.
Yes, no, I am very proud of being working class. I don't know whether I can talk about the gentry because I'm not qualified, John. I'm not good enough for them, John. What do you think?
Well, it's just the definition of gentry is just a landholder. That's all a gentry is, a landholder. You know, whether it be small or large. Not many people in England used to own land. You know, it was only owned by the, you know, barons and knights, and, you know, like it wasn't a common thing to, you know, share it round. You know, and when they become a landed gentry, this new class, you know, established, they thought they were important.
Now, John, you know, I want to ask you, are you a monarchist? Are you a monarchist, John?
I have great respect for the monarchy of Thailand. For the principle of context. For the principle of monarchy as an example to lead society, I think it's a good symbol for people to look up to. To that extent, I'm a monarchist. But most progressive societies have no need for that sort of symbolism in everyday life. It's nice there for the pomp and grandeur to look at Christmas time, yeah, or when someone gets married, but otherwise relevance to 21st century society is, you know, pretty slim, really, isn't it? You know?
John, tell me this. Give me 5 tips to be a gentleman. Quickly. We want quick, concise tips.
5 tips to be a gentleman. Good manners. Consider others before yourself. Be respectful of people's thoughts and their statements. That's 3. Am I going all right so far?
Yep, come on.
2 more.
Yes.
Be humble. Be humble.
Yes.
And try to help people. They're all good gentlemanly virtues.
Doesn't matter the breeding, Johnny.
Not one bit. Not one bit. You can get a bloke in the street, he could be, you know, handed out papers, you know, be a derelict or something.
I want to ask you something. How does a gentleman behave in a brothel? What separates a gentleman from an absolute cunt? Can a gentleman go to a brothel, firstly? Yes or no?
Of course they can. Many do. You know, most blokes do go to brothels. The blokes that say they haven't been to brothels, they pull their dick too much. and they're not telling the truth. If they haven't been to a brothel, they're afraid, and there's nothing to be afraid of. You know, you're not doing, you know, the wrong thing. You know, if you're in a marital situation, you know, you might be unfaithful to your partner, you know, by doing that. But you know, what you do in your time and how you treat it in your head's your business. You know, if you're not hurting anyone else and no one else is going to find out, well, that's not hurting anyone. But as far as being a gentleman in a massage parlour, maybe it's not the best thing to do as soon as you meet the lady is go into the grope. You know, being an octopus is not a good idea in a massage parlour. Wait until you're in the room. Wait until you're in the room. What's your advice?
I have no idea. In Nana, I was known as the octopus. So
Yeah.
you've completely shocked me. So how do you behave? What am I doing wrong?
Oh, it's better to sit back and flash the wallet a bit. You know, I've found like if you open up the wallet, you know, and you drop a bundle of 1,000-baht notes on the ground and pick them up and put them back in your wallet again, you get a bit more than going for the grope. I've found. Yeah.
But I'm not going for the grope for gratification. I'm just trying to work out whether they got a prick with them.
Well, when we go over, I'll show you ways how. Well, normally a good way to do that before, look at the size of their feet. Look what's on their shoes. If they, look what's on their feet. And if their high heels look large, you know, that's a good indication first. You know, just look at their feet first. You know, like, and how high their heels are, and if they're taller than you, a strong chance it's a bloke. You know, like you don't have to go for the grope. You know, like.
Can a gentleman swear, John? Can a gentleman swear?
Yes, of course a gentleman should swear, but a gentleman maybe shouldn't swear in front of a lady.
Can a gentleman be charged for GBH?
GBH, what's that?
Grievous bodily harm.
Of course they can. Of course they can.
John,
that's got
Now, I would have to say, see, it's uncool for a gentleman to say that they are a gentleman themselves. But I must say this, John, you are the internet gentleman. You are an internet gentleman, and I've met you in real life, and you certainly are a gentleman. John, I want to ask you this. The art of being a gentleman, I think, is being lost. Do you strive to be a gentleman yourself in your own life, or is it a different calling? What is your calling?
I strive to show my son how to be a gentleman in life. That is the only thing I want to teach him, is how to be a gentleman. To me, that's very important. You know, to know how to dress properly, how to sit down at a table and, you know, use the right knife and fork, and how to have good manners. I don't see terribly much of it in society. It's for me, what you did in Thailand when you took these women out for a feed, that is very wise from the point of view is I like to see how they eat. You know, if they've got good table manners, you know, and how they eat, and if they know how to eat properly, well, that's past square one with me. If a woman doesn't know how to eat at a table with good manners, that puts me off. You know, but training good manners and how to be a gentleman to my son is very important. You know, to me.
John, tell me this. The art of being a gentleman is being replaced by quick dollars. It used to be gentlemen came from the more affluent families. in today's society, it seems to be very monetary focused. What car do you drive? What clothes do you wear? Have you seen that change yourself?
That's a very good assessment. What you're saying. Yes, it is. Everything is motivated by the dollar, as you know, as opposed to doing the right thing. You know, what you're saying is, I don't think blokes stand up on the train anymore for women, do they? You know, do many open doors for ladies anymore?
John, I want to ask you something. Do the women deserve it these days? Sorry, let me just throw that to you. Do the women deserve it?
Well, until they've proven to me with that they're not worthy of that respect, I will show that anyway. Like, just because, you know, like if a woman, you know, comes to a, you know, say to a bank, and I'm walking outside the bank, and, you know, I don't look the look of her, and, you know, she looks a bit rough or something like that, or she, you know, she doesn't suit my standards of appearance, it doesn't matter. You know, to me, she's a female, and, you know, I'll still open the door for her. You know, it's, you know, even if they, you know, have a go at you. You know, I don't need you up at the fucking door, cunt. Good, nice. Yeah. But I'll, until I've proven any different, I'll you know, I'll pay due respect. You know, I don't make judgment just upon appearance. You know, I'd rather wait until they open up their gob first before I start to judge them. Then I'll start to think.
I see. John, I'm rather concerned here that the art of being a gentleman has been confused with what products a man buys. Is the possession of products the key to being a gentleman?
As I see it, monetary possessions or no, it's how you present as a man. You know, like you don't have to have a watch on your wrist to be, you know, to be a man. You know, it's no good putting a man's watch on your wrist. You know, if you got a boy's wrist, you know, it looks out of place. You know, like there's certain people on YouTube, you lined them all up in a row, and you'd say, pick the schoolboy. You know, like, who would you pick? You know, like, it's pretty easy. You know, like, pick the old man. Well, you'd most probably pick me. You know, pick the Greek. You know, well, we're going to pick Hunter, aren't we? You know, pick ArchieLuxury. We're going to pick you. But, you know, like, the bloke doesn't even shave, does he? You know, Christ, you know, like, you know, as far as being a gentleman's concerned, it's what you do, not what you say. You know, really, what you do. And when I've seen you walking down the street, you know, you're nothing but. You couldn't think, you know, couldn't say, you know, you dress nice and present nice. Yeah, and you're not a shrinking drylet. You're a big boy. You're a big boy. You like Hunter?
Yeah. Yes, I understand. There's just someone ringing me. I ring you back, okay? So anyhow, John, I think this thing about how to be a gentleman, I want to talk to you about this. A gentleman opens doors for ladies. A gentleman doesn't grope a girl in a brothel. This is just common sense manners, John, isn't it?
Essentially, yes. You know, just a bit of common human, you know, courtesy.
At an orgy, a gentleman allows his friends to go first.
I don't think you got rules that way when you're in that circumstance. I normally put my hand up first and third, you know, in those circumstances.
Now, John, I wanted to ask you this. Being a gentleman, you don't need to be in Burke's Peerage, do you? Burke's Peerage is the manual for gentlemen. It lists all the families of great significance in the United Kingdom?
Yeah, there's a few listed in there which aren't too, don't hold too much credibility either. You know, there's a few in Burke's Peerage, you know, have turned out to be real cunts. You know, there's no credibility just because you're in Burke's Peerage makes you a gentleman or a nice person. You know, if some of their histories are studied, you know, in detail, you know, if they put out, you know, all their ancillary mistresses, you know, attached to their name, you know, maybe, maybe a little bit different. You know, like what goes on behind closed doors is a different circumstance to, you know, what they call breeding. You know, my dog's got a fucking better pedigree than most of these cunts. Fair dinkum. You know, like, yeah, and besides the fact, you know, like a lot of it can be inbreeding too. You know, it's like Tasmania amongst them, isn't it? They don't bar their sisters or anything, do they?
No, John, I think we better wrap this program up here. So I'm going to call it quits. How to Be a Gentleman, ongoing series. In the new year, John, we'll be looking at ways to be a gentleman, and we'll be looking at brothel etiquette in detail. If in doubt, John, just be nice to the other person. That's always the best way to behave. Just be nice. Just be nice. Gets you a long way, John. So thank you, John, for joining us, and we'll catch up soon.